Hello everyone, welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding the Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav, and we will be learning today Emir Hashem Daf Kuf Lamed Beis Amid Aleph. We pick up, however, on Kuf Lamed Aleph Amid Beis. We're going to conclude the beautiful Siman Tuf Reish Nun Ches, where we have been discussing the intricacies of the requirement of Lochem, that the Daled Minim must belong to you in order for you to be Mekayim the mitzvah on the first day of Yom Tov, when the mitzvah of Daled Minim is a daraisa. We're holding on Kof Lamed Aleph Amid Beis in Sif Tes. Says the Mechaber, Ma'asha Noi Hagim, the minig that we have, B'mokay Mishain Esrig Motzui, in locales where they have difficulty getting hold of Daled Minim, Shakol HaKohol Koinim Esrog B'shutfis. They had a minig where the tzibur would get together and they would buy one set of Daled Minim as a partnership. And we said earlier, we spoke in the previous share in Siv Zayin and Siv Ches about using Daled Minim that were purchased as a shutfis. And basically what we said was, if partners buy a set of Daled Minim, then when one of them wants to use the Daled Minim to be Mekayim the mitzvah, the other partner has to grant his portion to the other partner as a matana amanas lahachzir, so that the partner who wants to be mekayim the mitzvah should be using a set of daled minim that are his, and he could fulfill the requirement of lachem. And then when the other partner wants to use it, he will grant his portion to the other partner. Unless, we said, that if the Daled Minim were bought expressly for the purpose of being Mekayim the mitzvah, then we said that this does not have to be spoken out. We can see that on the second line in the Ramah of Kuf Lamed Aleph Amid Beis, where the Ramah said, V'dafka shaloi kanu l'tzarech mitzvah. This, that the partners have to grant their portion to the other partner, is only true when the Daled Minim were not purchased for the sake of the mitzvah. So, for example, partners bought an esrig as a fruit to eat in a partnership. And then came Sukkot and said, we have this esrig that we own in partnership. We want to use it for the mitzvah. Each partner is going to have to grant his chelik, his portion of ownership in the esrig, to the other partner for use to be mekayim the mitzvah. But the Ramah said, Avalim kanu l'tzarech mitzvah. But if the partners bought the esrig to be used for the purpose of the mitzvah, Yotzim by mistama. Then the Ramah said, min hastam, without any verbalization of granting ownership. Each partner could use it because it was understood by both partners, or by three partners or four partners, when they purchased the esrig. It was self-understood that this esrig is going to be used l'tzarech mitzvah, and everybody understands that l'tzarech mitzvah, when any one of the partners wants to use the esrig, he's going to have full ownership in order to be mekayim the mitzvah. So it's self-understood that the full ownership will be granted to that partner at that time. That's why over here in Sif Tes, says the Mechaber, Mashanai Hagib b'makom she'ein esrig motzui shekol hakol koinim esrig b'shutvis. This minig that we have, that when there's difficulty getting an esrig, or one of the Daled Minim, the entire tzibur gets together and they buy the Daled Minim in a shutvis, hatam, the reason we allow this is, mipnei shekevon shekena'uhu lotzeis bai, because since the kahal, the tzibur, is buying the Daled Minim for the express purpose of using them to be mekayim the mitzvah, mistama hevi ki'ilu pershu shekal hakol noistim chelkam l'chol misha noitlei lotzeis bai amanashi yachziru lahem. Just like the Ramah spoke out in Siv Zayin, since over here in Sif Tes, the entire tzibur is getting together to buy the Daled Minim for the express purpose of using them to be mekayim the mitzvah, it is unspoken. It's an unspoken condition of the purpose of the purchase and of the partnership that whenever it's somebody's turn to use it, he will have full ownership of the Daled Minim al menas, with the stipulation that he returns it to the tzibur afterwards. Now we have a few Mishnah Berurahs over here. Says the Mishnah Berurah is Katan Lamed Ches, Shakal HaKohol Koinim, Kasav HaChayodam, the Chayodam writes, Afilu Lefi Min Hagenu, Shekol Echad Noisin Kemoishe Yirtze. The minig, says the Chayodam, was that in such cases, the tzibur did not assess each member of the tzibur to pay a specific amount. It wasn't like a tax where they went around the tzibur and they said everybody has to pay $5 for the esrog. Rather, it was left that each person will pay an amount that he feels he's able to pay. And therefore, the point that the Chayyim is making is, even though it was understood that different people are going to pay different amounts, and the people who paid more understood that there are people who are going to be paying less, and still in all, the people who paid more willingly granted full ownership of the Daled Minim to the individuals who paid less when they needed it to use it to be Yotze the mitzvah. Nevertheless, says the Chayyim, Zeh she'eino noisen klal. If there's a member of the tzibur who refuses to pay anything, he doesn't want to chip in, he doesn't give any money towards the Daled Minim, Nira, it appears, says the Chayyim, Shalo Yotza im yesh biyacholto lite. If this person really is able to give towards the purchase of the Daled Minim, and he just refuses to, and he doesn't pay anything, then, says the Chayyim, that person will not be Yotze. And why is that? Because the Chayyim is reasoning, even though it's true that the people who pay more readily grant full ownership to the people who pay less, they're not interested in granting full ownership to somebody who's taking advantage, somebody who has the ability to contribute and doesn't contribute anything. They don't willingly give ownership to that person, and therefore the Chayyim says such a person, Pashtus, would not be Yotze. The Mechaber said that in this case, where the tzibur is getting together, it doesn't have to be spoken out that everybody is granting ownership to the person who's being Yotze the mitzvah when it's his turn. It's unspoken. It's ben astam. That's the way it works. Says the Chavetz Chaim, even though this is absolutely the halacha, and this is the halacha, there's no disputing it, nevertheless, since, and the literal translation of these words is, since not everybody is bucky, they don't have a full understanding of what it means to be makneh, to give over full ownership of their chelik to somebody else. And I think what the Mishnah Berurah really means is, not everybody learnt Siman Tafresh Nun Ches in Archaim with the Mishnah Berurah and with the Noisei Kelim. And they don't understand the nuances that are at work over here. That the first day of Yom Tov, there's a requirement of Lachem, and Lachem means that you cannot be Yotze with something borrowed. You have to have full ownership. And the fact that the person who's using it needs full ownership means that you, as a partner, have to grant full ownership, and you have to understand that that's different than being alone, and it's also different than thinking that I'm giving it to him temporarily, because we said granting a gift temporarily, if somebody would say, I'm giving you the Daled Minim and it should be yours for 10 minutes and then it reverts back to my ownership, we said that doesn't work. We said from the Rishonim that a temporary matana, lo yishma matana, that's not really a matana, that's a loan. Not everybody gets all of these intricacies. So therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, since not everybody understands all the detail over here, therefore, kasvu kama achronim, maybe achronim right, shemutav levarech al shaloi. It is much better that a person should use his own Daled Minim, im yesh lo kol arba minim kisherim. If he's able to get his hands on all of the Daled Minim that are kosher, it's much better that a person should use his own Daled Minim, afa pisha enam mihudarim kemoishal chaveroi. Even if his set of Daled Minim is not nearly as nice as somebody else's set, it doesn't matter. He should better use his own set than to use somebody else's set. Because on the first day of Yom Tov, if you're using somebody else's Daled Minim, that person really has to understand that he's giving you a matana gemura, even if it's a matana amanas lahachzir, but it's a matana gemura, and that you, as the one who's using it to be Yotze the mitzvah, have full ownership of the Daled Minim. And says the Mishnah Berurah, not everybody gets that. Ve'im ein loy, and if a person taka doesn't have, mutav sheyitol shel chaveroi hakisherim. So then, if the best thing is, you should use your own. If you can't use your own, then says the Mishnah Berurah, it's better. It's better that you should borrow one person's set of daled minim. Mishayital shel hakol. That would be better than using the tzibur's daled minim. So again, the best thing is use your own. You're stuck and you don't have your own, borrow from one person. But get a matana gemura al manas lahachzir from one person before you use the daled minim of the tzibur. Because if you take it from one person, then you only need one person to have the level of understanding that he's giving you a matana al manas lahachzir. If you use the daled minim that belong to the tzibur, now you might be dealing with 50 owners. And you have much more, the odds are greater that you're going to have a problem. All you need is one person who has a chelik in those daled minim who doesn't really understand that he's giving away his chelik as a matana amanas lahachzir. Because there are those that really worry that with the tzibur's daled minim, it's very possible you're not yotza. Because maybe there's one owner who doesn't really understand that he has to be granting his portion to the people that are using it to be yotza the mitzvah. And even though halacha l'maisa we paskin that you can use the daled minim of the tzibur, so we don't paskin like those paiskim who say that you're not yotza with the daled minim of the tzibur. But still, however, the Chai Adam says it certainly would be preferable to be dealing with one owner rather than dealing with 50 owners. So better you should take the daled minim of an individual, not of the tzibur. Says the Mishnah Berurah, certainly if you're dealing with a set of the daled minim that belong to the tzibur, the shamus should make an announcement. You should give a clap by the bima, and he should say, everybody should understand that they are granting the ownership of their portion in the daled minim to the person who's using it to be yotza the mitzvah at that moment. Okay. Now we go to the words of the Ramah, 4 lines from the bottom here in the Shulchan Aruch. Excuse me. Says the Ramah, Haga, v'goivin ma'is esrig lefi mamon. When we do collect from the tzibur the funds with which to buy the esrig, we do it, we take from each person in accordance with his ability to pay. The hider mitzvah munach tvei al ashirim me al aniyim. Because let's remember, especially when it comes to the esrig, but all the daled minim, we have the requirement of hadar. We want to buy beautiful daled minim. But we have also seen that when it comes to being mekayim the mitzvah of zekeli vanveyu, of hider mitzvah, that goes how much you spend on hider mitzvah goes according to your personal level of wealth. We said it goes ad shlish. So therefore, if we're assessing a wealthy person, how much he should spend towards the hider mitzvah of the daled minim of the tzibur, and then we're assessing a person of lesser means, certainly the ashir, the wealthy person, should spend more towards the zekeli va'anveyu than the person of lesser means. Says the Ramah Vaiter, V'isha petura militein lemois esrig, a woman who lives in town, who doesn't have a husband, maybe a widow or a divorcee, whatever it is, a woman who's living alone, she does not have to contribute towards the funds necessary to buy the daled minim for the tzibur, because she doesn't have a chiyuv. V'chol adam yishtadel v'yehizaris by mitzvah liktais like esrig v'lulav levad. The Ramah ends off the Siman by saying that each person should be a zariz. He should act with alacrity to go purchase a set of daled minim for himself, kedei lekayim ha-mitzvah ketikna, so that he should be able to be mekayim the mitzvah in the proper way. And what we mean by this, we'll see in the Mishnah Berurah, is that he shouldn't run into any of these problems of ownership issues on the first 2 days of Yom Tov here in Chutz La'aretz when we need lachem. If you're coming onto a borrowed set of daled minim, you come onto all of these issues of ownership. If you have your own, you don't have an issue. That's one thing. And the other thing is that if you want to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Lulav and Esrog Ketikna, you have to have the Dalaminim available to you during Hallel to make the Nanuim in the proper way. And if you're dealing with the Tzibor's Dalaminim or somebody else's Dalaminim, it's very possible that you won't have the availability of the Dalaminim during Hallel when the owner or somebody else will be using it. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Mem Aleph, the Isha Petura, a woman is exempt from contributing towards this Dalad Minim fund. However, if she knows that she is going to want to make use of the Tzibur's Dalad Minim in order to make a bracha on the Dalad Minim, then she certainly should contribute. Even though she doesn't have a chiyuv to do so, she's not mechuyev to make the bracha and take the Dalad Minim. A woman is potter in the mitzvah of Dalad Minim. It's a mitzvah sasei shazman grama. But many of our Nashim Kisheros, they certainly do take the Lulav and Esrog and be Mekayim the mitzvah. So if a woman who's alone in town knows that she is going to want to be Mekayim the mitzvah with the Tzibur's Dalad Minim, then certainly she is chayiv to contribute. Umisha Eina Be'ir Ein Tzarech Litain, somebody who is not in town doesn't have to contribute. So somebody who's a resident of the town, but he's away for Yom Tov, he does not have to contribute. Vayin B'shari Tshuva. Ois Katan Mem Beis, HaMitzvah Kitikuna, Ki Roiva Olam Einam Yodim Lahaklis Lechavereim. The Mishnah Berurah says, why is this an issue that you have to have your own, and if not, you might not be Yotze the Mitzvah Kitikuna? Because like we said, there are many people who do not understand the finer nuances at work over here of granting ownership. And furthermore, like we spoke out, you want to have the availability of the Dalad Minim during Hallel, during Hashanah, to make the Nanuim properly, etc. Afilu chal yoim rishon b'Shabbos, says the Chavetz Chaim. Even if the first day of Yom Tov is going to fall out on Shabbos, the etzem ha-mitzvah sasei efshar shov l'kayim. If the first day of Yom Tov is Shabbos, then we're not going to be mekayim the mitzvah sasei daraisa of Dalad Minim, because we don't take the Dalad Minim on Shabbos. So, it points out Chavetz Chaim, you might think that if the first day of Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, maybe then it's not so important to purchase your own set of Dalad Minim, because you don't have these ownership issues. They only apply on the first day. Says the Chavetz Chaim, no. Even if the first day is Shabbos, you should still be mishtadel to purchase your own set of Dalad Minim. You still should attempt and work hard to get your own set of Dalad Minim. Says the Chavetz Chaim, like we're going to explain further. Now this took me a couple of minutes to figure this out. I think I got it right. Let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says going further. Adam sheyesh lo esrig miyuchad, a person who has his own Dalad Minim. So a person lives in town A, and he has his own personal set of Dalad Minim, and there's also a tzibur set of Dalad Minim in town A. So town A has a set of Dalad Minim available, owned by the tzibur, available for use by the tzibur, and Ruvain happens to have his own set of Dalad Minim in town A. Then he finds out that in town B, they have no Dalad Minim at all. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Mutav sheyishlachenu l'sham, it's better that he should take his own personal set of Dalad Minim and he should send them over to town B, so that town B should have the availability of Dalad Minim to be Yotze the mitzvah. V'hu yivarech al shel kahal, and he, in town A, he just gave up his own personal set. He'll be Yotze the mitzvah with the tzibur set. So it's a b'di'eved that he's using the set that belongs to the tzibur. But it's better he should give up his own set and send it to town B, so all the Yiddish residents of town B will have Dalad Minim to be Yotze the mitzvah, and he should do the b'di'eved, and he should be using the town set. Kain Kasev Magen Avram b'shem Mate Moshe. So says the Magen Avram in the name of the Mate Moshe. Uvemachetz hashekel kosav, and on this the Machzis Hashekel writes, the bizman hazeh, that nowadays the roiv pa'amim achar avor eze yomim me'achag, that many times after several days of Yom Tov pass, al yidei roiv mishmush b'nei adam, through everybody handling the Dalad Minim, esrig shel hakohol miskalkel, the esrig that belongs to the tzibur starts to get ruined, it gets brown, it starts to shrivel up. Efsher ain't tzarech l'shloach l'chaverei esrig shaloi ad kan l'shoiner. The Machzis Hashekel says The Magen Avram said, if you have your own private set, it's better you should send your own private set to another town that doesn't have any, and you should use the tzibur set. On that, the Machzah Shekel said, not so fast, because after several days of use, the tzibur's esrik starts to get ruined. And if the tzibur's esrik is going to get ruined, you're not going to have daled minim to be yotzei the mitzvah. So in such a case, don't give up your daled minim so fast. Now, says the Chavetz Chaim, Usveika yuchal liyos rak al shar hayomim. Obviously, the problem that the Machzah Shekel is bringing up is not negeya on the first day of Yom Tov. It's only negeya later on Yom Tov. The esrog of the tzibur is not getting ruined on the first day of Yom Tov. The Machzah Shekel said that the esrog of the tzibur might get ruined several days into Yom Tov from everybody using it every day of Yom Tov. But it's not going to happen on the first day. To be Amrisha in a motzi kol kach lehiskalkel, it would be odd that the esrog should get ruined on the first day of Yom Tov. And gam yachal avarech alav babayker kaidim shiyada kol yamash b'shubay. And also on the first day of Yom Tov, so get up early, get up by nets, make a bracha on the daled minim, and then that's it. You don't have the problem anymore. So obviously, when the Machzah Shekel says that maybe you should retain ownership of your own private set and not send it to a neighboring town because there's a worry that maybe the daled minim of the tzibur will get messed up later on Yom Tov, what do you see from there? You see from there that the Machzah Shekel is saying, even on the later days of Yom Tov, there's a milah that you should have your own private set. So that's why the Mishnah Berurah said on the top two lines of the Mishnah Berurah over here, he said, even when it's not the first day of Yom Tov, you should still be mishtadel to have your own set, uchidele kabeh. Like we're going to see further along from this Machzis HaShekel, you see that there's a milah to have your own set even later on Yom Tov. Okay, with that we conclude Siman Taf Reish Nun Ches. What a beautiful Siman. I really enjoyed this Siman. I hope I delivered it clearly to the Tzibur. I hope the Olam enjoyed it. Now we go to Kuf Lamed Beis, Amud Aleph, Siman Taf Reish Nun Tes, Seder Kriyas HaTorah Basukos, the proper Seder of the laning on the Yom Tov of Sukkot, by Sif Echad, and here we have one Sif. Says the Mechaber, on Yom Tov, first day of Yom Tov, here in Chutz La'aretz, the first 2 days of Yom Tov, Moitziin Shnei Sfarim, we take out 2 Sifrei Torah. Be'echad Karim Shar Oikesev Beparshas Emor. In the first Sefer, we lane the Parsha of Shar Oikesev Oyez Ki Yivaled. That is in Parshas Emor. It starts with a halacha in Hilchos Kachim. It starts with a discussion of when does an animal become roi to be brought as a carbon. That has really nothing to do with Yom Tov. It has nothing to do with Sukkot specifically. However, very soon after that, we have the Parsha of the Mayadim. We have the psukim that have to do with Shabbos and of all of the Yomim Tovim. And that's why this is an appropriate kriya for Yom Tov. And that's what we lay on the first 2 days. Now, why do we add the Parsha of Shara Kesef at the beginning? Why don't we just dive straight in to laying about Shabbos and the Mayadim? Because we wouldn't have enough psukim. We need to have enough psukim for 5 aliyahs. So we have to add on the Parsha of Shara Kesef at the beginning. Ubasheni, and then in the second Sefer Torah, Karei HaMaftir, the person who gets the aliyah of Maftir, then we lane Karbonos HaMusafim, the Karbonos of the Musaf of Sukkot, that begins Ubachamisha Asar L'Chodesh HaShvi on the 15th day of the 7th month, Umaftir B'Zachariah, and then on the first day of Yom Tov, we lane for the Haftarah, we lane from the Navi Zachariah, Hinei Yom Ba, where we lane about the Melchemes Gog Umagog. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Katan Aleph be'echad kairim kein bayam harishon v'chein bayam hasheni v'chein kriyas hamaftir. This is the laning that we lane on both first days of Yom Tov, and this is the maftir. Uv'chamisha asar yom lachodesh hashvi. We lane the karbonos of the karbonos musaf of the first day of Yom Tov on both first days of Yom Tov. Eis Katan Beis b'Parshas Emor b'chol chamisha. If Yom Tov falls out on a weekday, we lane 5 aliyahs before the maftir. Ub'Shabbos, if Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, Shiva, we lane 7 aliyahs before the maftir. Uvemincha, If Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, then by Mincha Karen Shloisha we lay in 3 aliyahs beparshas v'zois habracha. Ois Katan Gimel ubasheni in the second sefer we lay the karbonis musa from Parshas Pinchas. Umanichin sefer Torah shnia etzla. We put the second sefer Torah down on the bima next to the first sefer Torah. Va'omrim chatzi kaddish, and we say chatzi kaddish. The reason we do this, incidentally, is because we need to have a kaddish after the first 5 aliyahs. Because the first 5 aliyahs is the Iker Kriya. That's the main Kriyas HaTorah. So after that Kriyas HaTorah is complete, we say Kaddish. However, we want the Kaddish to be shaykh to the laning of the maftir as well. So therefore, we take the Sefer Torah that we're going to use for the maftir, and we put it on the bima next to the first Sefer Torah when we say Kaddish. Another interesting, let's go to Ois Katan Dalet first. Ois Katan Dalet, we leinu v'chamisha asa l'chodesh hashvi, ad uvayim hasheni. We lane up until uvayim hasheni. In the parsha of the Musafin of Sukkot, let's remember that the Karma Musaf of Sukkot changes every day, because we bring the Parei HaChag. We have the parim that are brought as karbonis for the Musaf on Sukkot. We go one less every day. So the Karban Musaf of Sukkot changes every single day. The first 2 days of Yom Tov here in Chutz La'aretz, on both days we lane uvayim harishon. Now, Sveika D'Yoma tells us that we're always not sure, is Yom Tov the day that we picked or is it the day before? And that's why, let's say, on Chol HaMoed, we always say and we always lane 2 days of Karbonos Musafim, because of Sveika D'Yoma. Did we get the right day or not? So how about the first day of Yom Tov? On the first day of Yom Tov, it makes sense that we only lane uvayom harishon. We only lane the karbonis of the first day, because either it's the first day, or it's chayil, or it's weekday. So there's only one set of karbonis we have to lane. We only have to lane uvayom harishon. Now the problem is the second day. On the second day, it might be the second day, or it might be the first day. So really, you would think that on the second day we should lane, and we should say in the Musaf Shemona Esrei, we should say uvayom harishon, uvayom hasheni, because maybe it's really the second day of Yom Tov, maybe it's the first day of Yom Tov, but we don't. We only lane uvayom harishon, and we only say in the Shemona Esrei of Musaf, we only say uvayom harishon. Why is that? The reason is because let's remember, if what we keep as Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golius is really the second day of Yom Tov, then it's not really Kodesh, it's really Chol. The first days of Sukkot, there's really only one first day of Sukkot. The Yom Tov of Sukkot is only on the 15th of Tishrei. That's the only day that's really Yom Tov. We have to keep 2 days because of Sveika D'Yoma. But if we're going to lane uvayom hasheni, that is really a suggestion that today, that what we're keeping as the second day of Yom Tov is not Kodesh, it's Chayil. And that would be a bezoyan to the Yom Tov to lane uvayom hasheni and suggest that it's Chayil. And therefore, on the second day of Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golius, the second day of Yom Tov, we only say and we only lane uvayom harishon. Ed continues the Mishnah Berurah, ve'im hiska likrais b'yom hasheni. Should you start to lane, if the Balkare would accidentally start to lane by Yom Hasheni, Paisik, he would interrupt and stop, afilu b'em ta pasuk, even middle of the pasuk. V'im karab inyan acher lo yotza, if you lane any other laning, you're not yotza kriyas HaTorah. V'tzarech l'kroisa kula b'vracha lefaneha ula achareha, and of course we have to have a bracha before and a bracha after by the maftir. V'im dilek pasuk echad tzarech lachzar, and if you skip a pasuk of the maftir, you're not yotza, you have to go back. V'im dilek pasuk uvachamisha asar, however, if you skip the pasuk of uvachamisha asar yom l'chodesh hashvi, then you don't have to go back, because that pasuk doesn't mention anything about the carbon. It only announces what day the carbon was brought, but it doesn't have any specifics about the carbon, and therefore that pasuk is not strictly necessary, and ain't tzarech lachzar. Ois Katan or Maftir b'Zechariah, we lay in the Haftarah from Zechariah. Zeru b'Yom Harishon, that's what we lay in on the first day. Umipnei sheyesh ba me'inyan Sukkos, because it discusses the Melchemes Gog Magog, which either they say it's going to take place in Chodesh Tishrei, and it also mentions the Yom Tov of Sukkot because it speaks about the survivors of the Melchemes Gog Magog and how the Goyish survivors of the Melchama will join with Bnei Yisrael in keeping the Yom Tov of Sukkot. Ubiyam Sheni, on the second day of Yom Tov Sheni Shagolius, Karei Haftarah b'Malachim, we learn from Sefer Malachim, Min Vayikahalu ad B'Yitziyah Yisamei Eretz Mitzrayim, Mimnei Sheyesh Ba'inyan Chanukas Habayis. That's because we learn about the Chanukas Habayis of Bayis Rishon, when Shlomo HaMelech opened up the Bayis Rishon, Shahoisa Ba'oisa Asifa B'Chag HaSukkos, which happened on the Yom Tov of Sukkot. We're going to stop over here. Mirza Hashem, next time we'll pick up with Siman Tafrei Samach. Thank you so much for joining me for Liman HaTorah. The schus of Liman HaTorah should be megan on God's Klal Yisrael, the Baruch Shem should send Yeshua's Refuas, Parnasa, Shidduchim to all those in need, and we should be zeichet to see the Bias Kol Tzedek, the Meher of Yameinu. Amen. Be well.